Hello everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among other things. Thank you very much for joining me here today. Now we're taking a look at Burger. I've looked at this previously in the past when it had its previous increase in price. I've got a lot of, I guess you could say, fans of this coin. Majority of my Patreon community asked me to cover this again, so thank you so much for requesting that I cover this. Now, moving forward, I'm not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. Always do your own research, but I can tell you I have years of trading experience, and my goal is to help you trade for a lifetime with the right goals and the best practice, and also try to help you find a good entry point here today. Okay. So before we get into that, I just want to note that I do have a link to my Patreon community down below, as well as my Telegram community and Discord channels. So feel free to reference that on your own time. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get right to it. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at Burger. Sorry, I laugh every time I say that word. It's just a hilarious name for a coin. I'm sorry. If you feel the same way, feel free to comment below. But oh man, I get a lot of joy out of saying the word burger nowadays. Nonetheless, in all seriousness, if you're new to the channel, we're going to take a look at, of course, Burger with a straight face, with the intention of understanding, best practice. We're going to look at the 1-day chart, 4-hour chart, 15-minute, and then 1-minute chart. We're going to work our way down essentially from the top. But before we do, what we want to do first is look at Bitcoin and Ethereum to get a baseline on the market, see what's going on. Okay, so we'll look at that first, just so you understand more specifically how to, how it's impacting the altcoins that we invest in, right? Because as you know, recently we've had some pretty big doozies with Bitcoin that really shook the market. So that being said, looking at Bitcoin here, this is first of all the 4-hour chart. I'm using the Binance desktop application, and if you'd like to use the same trading view, I click on trading view in the corner there, and that is essentially the main thing that I use here. Okay, so just be mindful that it defaults to original, but again, 4-hour chart on Bitcoin. And the reason why we're here is because the moving averages, specifically the 200 and the 50-day moving averages, are the most consistent. That they're used by industry leaders, right? So anyone that's controlling the market is going to see these indicators and work with them, right? So you have to get on board with the trend because they create the trend. So that being said, the 50-day moving average is this yellow line. Okay? And this yellow line essentially tells us that it's working as a resistance level. As you can see, it's pushed the price down, almost 18 hours in a row, somewhere in that range. So almost a full 24 hours it's pushed the price back down because it broke above this previous support, now a resistance of 38,800. So just be mindful, 38,800 is pretty close to a strong resistance level right now that needs to break above. But when Bitcoin comes above that and holds above, we should likely see 40,000, maybe even 42,000 as the next target in sight. That's the hope, that's the goal, but if we can come up here and turn back around, we'll be making higher highs and higher lows if we can continue up past that resistance level. Furthermore, the 200-day moving average is also a pretty strong support and resistance level too. However, that's really far away. We don't even need to worry about that. For right now, let's focus on passing 40,000 and then 42 as the next milestone. Okay, that is Bitcoin on the 4-hour chart. Ethereum on the 4-hour chart is basically just a copy and paste of Bitcoin right now. Normally, Ethereum does very well and Bitcoin does poorly. However, Bitcoin has been doing so poor that Ethereum is following suit. Nobody really wants to jump over to Ethereum as a secondary, investment. They're likely in putting their money into other altcoins that have other high, market cap. So we're looking at, ADA, XRP, Matic. Those are all taking a lot of the overall volume recently, and it's kind of shifting. So I feel like Ethereum is no longer the fallback for most people that decide to sell off their Bitcoin and jump to Ethereum. I think they're jumping elsewhere. But the key note here is that, big surprise, 50-day moving average is also holding the price down. So that's working as a resistance, roughly at about 2670. So we'll see if the price can bounce above and come above. Again, whatever Bitcoin does, Ethereum will too in this case, right? Now let's go ahead and look at the 1-day chart first. Now this is Burger. Keep in mind also it's fairly new to Binance. I believe this might even be the ICO date. Feel free to comment below if you have more insight, but I think this is, of course, brand new, essentially to the market. So we're looking at April 29th was the first day. So it's been traded for almost a month now, just shy of that. And this is roughly the data that we have so far. It worked, it started off very strong. Well, in fact, it flew too close to the sun, right? It's like upwards of, what is that, almost, that was $29 at its highest when the opening price was somewhere in the range of $8.50. So this gives you kind of an idea. Now, obviously the retracement that we see here makes sense. Anything that comes up this high this fast, if you could see the RSI and it was available, it would have been super high. And it came back down, of course, to retrace. It was trying to find itself in a channel of somewhere between 10 and 14, but unfortunately, it lost with the China candle here on the 18th, right? So whatever happened in China caused this to occur, and it drove the price. Of course, all price went down at that point, but that, that previous support level is now a resistance. So if you see this here, right at approximately $10.60, this is the new resistance. It was just tested today and rejected. So we'll see what happens there. But that was a very strong support level holding the price in place. So if we can just say get a little bit more consolidation from Bitcoin next 2 or 3 days, then Burger is going to be off to the races and coming up over $11 and then some. Because I feel like the average true range for Burger should be in the range of somewhere about 11 to 15. So when the price comes back up, we will see it likely hold as a support level here at 1060 roughly, and continuing above that. Now there's not much else to extract here, of course, because the MACD is delayed. RSI is only based on the last 14 days. It's right in the middle, so that's pretty standard for this scenario right now because we've had some consolidation and a recent ramp up. But good news is there's plenty of room for growth. So if the price were to spike up again, it would still stay under the RSI and be looking to be in pretty good shape. So again, a lot of potential here. I think we are just about to see a breakout from Burger. Now looking at the 4-hour chart, something to note is that the 50-day moving average is being tested right now, but likely working as a support. So you see it broke above, came below, above, slightly below, and now it's above. Right, so that's a good sign. So it'll likely consolidate in this channel here for a little while and then continue to test the resistance of 1060. Again, I would say in the next couple of days, maybe even sooner. If Bitcoin again can just go horizontal for a little while longer, then we're going to see another breakout from Burger. This correction is likely because of the fact that Bitcoin came back down a decent percent here. And it went down about 2,000, 2,500 in 4 hours. So that's expected to see here. Again, Burger is independent from Bitcoin to an extent, but it's also reliant on it as well, right? And we're really going to have that same concept on all altcoins. Whatever Bitcoin does, the altcoins essentially follow. Some will outperform Bitcoin. Those are the ones I prefer to invest in, but on the same accord, you need to know that Bitcoin is absolutely the catalyst, and it causes all the price movement in the market right now. Perhaps one day that will change. Now looking at the 4-hour chart, RSI still pretty low. We're looking good. Even with the recent ramp up, it didn't even come over close to 70. We're in good shape. It's neither oversold or overbought. But what's nice is the price is hovering over 55. So anything over 55 in the RSI can work as a kind of a tentative support level. All right. The inverse applies too with 45 or lower. So if you see the price here, there's almost a straight line. So just to quickly note, you got like this line. It's a terrible line, sorry. Okay, another terrible. There it is. All right. So right around 55, you can see there's a line. A lot of times you'll see the RSI kind of holding it in suit, holding in place, the price either up or down. So over 55 is essentially considered to be a support level on the RSI. Okay. So just something to note. That is an interesting fun fact. Now the MACD down below also implies that we're in bullish momentum, bullish territory. I don't think that's going to change for a little while. I do expect the price to continue to be in this channel. Again, if Bitcoin can stay over 37,000, we'll be just fine. Moving on to 15-minute chart for Burger, let's take a look here. First thing I do is I disable my moving averages, my simple moving average 50 and the 200. The reason why I disable that is just because they kind of get in the way. They're not super relevant at this level. Of course, it wouldn't hurt to keep them on, don't get me wrong, but I prefer not to because I like the VWAP and the EMA line. So to clarify what that is, the VWAP is a volume weighted average price. Basically just tells us what the price should be based on the volume of the last 24 hours. Okay, so the volume is expressed as a price, which is a very, very super helpful tool because it tells us if it's working as a support and or resistance. So as you can see here on this previous little bull run, the price action was above the VWAP line, kept testing it a couple times and stayed above. That's bullish. Obviously it came up, hit this here and retraced back down. So that's likely the reason why the VWAP was lost. But currently at this time, you can see that the volume weighted average price is working as a resistance level. So the rule of thumb, the best thing to understand here is that if you're going to take a long position, wait for confirmation above the VWAP line to ensure that you have that momentum in the right direction. And when I say confirmation, I'm talking about at least 2 solid green bars. So neither of these two have closed green above the VWAP line, so that's not really a good example. This would be an example of 2 solid green bars. Let me see if I can get a little closer there. So you can see that. Again, it's just picking, shooting fish out of a barrel here, but generally speaking, this is what I'm referring to. 2 solid green bars closing above the VWAP line, right? That's essentially a good consideration for an entry point. Now, why don't we go ahead and do this? Sorry, one sec. Let's go ahead and add the EMA line. And if you're not familiar with EMA, this is the exponential moving average. I use the EMA 15. Works best for me. Industry standard is probably the 20 or the 9. So you'll see 9 and 20 being thrown around, but this just splits the difference and it works better in that sense. So again, for me personally. So what you can see here is it's also another kind of momentous indicator. So it tells you that the price is staying above the EMA. Even when it drops below there, it's a very slight variance. Comes up, bounces off, came down, and essentially bounced off again to try to go for a last little push. That got rejected, but again, there's a pretty strong resistance at 1060. So that being said, what we want to do is identify a good entry point for you. And to do that, we want to, again, wait for confirmation. So to find a good entry in this scenario here for Burger, what we want to do is we want to wait for the price action to close above the VWAP and the EMA line to show that we have confirmation, and we want to see no less than 30 minutes above. In other words, if this green candlestick right here closes above the VWAP, that's 1 solid green bar. That's 1 15-minute green bar. You need 2 to get that full confirmation. Again, that's me personally. I recognize I can miss out on some price action, but it's more safe than sorry. And here's an example. Like, see this here? See the price came back down below. Not a good entry, not a good entry. There's 1 solid green bar and 2 solid green bars. So I'd probably take an entry right here because I got the 2 green bars closing over VWAP and EMA. Now, a lot of people will probably scoff at that. Okay, geez, you lost out on so much profit. That may be true, but the price didn't reverse on me. I got confirmation knowing that the price went where it needed to go and it continued upwards, right? And then what you do also is you pay attention to the RSI and see when it becomes overextended and then start paying closer attention. In other words, RSI, look, peaked up right here. No big deal, it's okay, let it go. Came down, bounced off the EMA, and came back up. Now look at this here, where the RSI starts to taper off and come back down, that's where you find your entry point. So it's roughly right about here. So you basically exit your position in this range here. And what that does is that nets you approximately 20%. Because again, you could get out when the RSI peaks up over 70. You could have got out right here, but that would only give you a what? Maybe a 10 to 15% increase, right? So again, these are just things that you need to be aware of. When you're taking an entry, wait for good confirmation. Don't just jump in because the price is, oh, it bounced off the VWAP, I'm good. Yes, it can work sometimes that way. You can get lucky. But more often than not, the price will reverse on you if you don't have solid confirmation. And to me, solid confirmation is waiting 30 minutes on the 15-minute chart, or just say no less than 3 to 5 minutes on the 1-minute chart. So if you just take the same principle and you look for 3 solid green bars on the 1-minute chart, it's effectively a very similar scenario. The only difference is you can get in a little earlier, but it can reverse on you quicker because you can get some false positives on the EMA line sometimes on the 1-minute chart. So again, just something to be mindful of. But big picture here, try to have good risk tolerance and make sure that you're just planning your exit strategy as soon as you enter your trade. Set a stop limit at 1% loss and maybe a 5% gain. Shoot for a 5-to-1 ratio. I prefer to shoot for 2-to-1 ratio, and obviously if it continues up like this, then I'm in good shape. But I'm very patient with my entry, and that's what saves me in most cases. Okay. Sometimes you can wait too long. Yes, that's true, and you can get stopped out. But for the most part, scenarios like this, when you can identify a good bull run that is staying above EMA and the VWAP line, then you're looking to be in pretty good shape. Okay. All right, so that's all I have for you here today. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your support. Thank you to my Patreon community for continuing to support me, and obviously just providing me with some really good resources here as well. So thanks for the recommendation here, and we'll look forward to the next one. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.